Welcome everyone to today's webinar titled Ceramics Additive Manufacturing, Pioneering Through Cooperation. I'm Eileen DeGeer, Director of Technical Content and Communications at the American Ceramic Society. Additive manufacturing technology for metals and polymers is more highly developed than it is for ceramic materials. However, as we will see, the market potential for ceramic additive manufacturing is expected to take off in the next 3 to 5 years and grow into a multi-billion-dollar industry within 10 years, driven mostly by applications in biomedicine, aerospace, energy, automotive, and even art. There is risk in adopting such a young technology, but in light of the unique promise of ceramic additive manufacturing, we have to ask, what are the risks of not looking at additive manufacturing? Today, we will hear how Lithos and Sandia National Laboratories partnered to bring lithography-based ceramic additive manufacturing in with Sandia's other additive capabilities and some of the challenges they met and overcame along the way. Our first speaker is Dr. Johannes Homa, CEO and co-founder of Lithos, a company specializing in ceramic additive manufacturing. He earned his PhD from the Vienna University of Technology in 2008, and just 3 years later, he co-founded Lithos in Vienna, Austria. Lithos works with its customers to develop materials and additive manufacturing systems to creatively solve intriguing problems with high-performance ceramics. The company serves the entire value chain from equipment and materials to component design and more. In 2017, the company expanded and established Lithos America here in the United States. Besides growing his company, Dr. Homa has become a global evangelist for additive manufacturing of ceramic materials across all composition types. Welcome, Johannes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aline, for this nice introduction. Good morning, everybody. I'm really glad to have you here on this webinar together with Dale from Sandia National Labs. I'm happy to have a very interesting topic to talk about. It will be partnership, and I think this is one of the most important topics in additive manufacturing. Before we move forward, I like to introduce a little bit to Lithos and the LCM technology, and then I will go into the topic and trying to focus on this partnership approach, which is actually necessary in such a new technology. So, yeah, welcome to Lithos. Here you see our team last autumn. We are currently about 70 people here in Austria and in the United States, in Troy, New York State, Albany, where we not only have a sales office, but also a lab and an application engineering and also material engineering, as you will see afterwards in Dale's presentation. And we are very clearly the world market and innovation leader in the field of 3D print of additive ceramic manufacturing. Sorry, that was too fast. We are offering really a full solution. So from the printer to material software, and we also do a lot of customized solutions. And by being this leader in this field, let's say in the field of high performance ceramics, we have already nearly 80 machines placed worldwide, from Australia to Japan, China, Europe, of course, United States, but also Brazil and other countries. What I think, and this is our philosophy a little bit, and which makes I think the importance of this topic is that we are trying to think in partnerships, not only in a customer and supplier relationship, but as a customer. And I think one of the reasons why we are successful, or one of the things is why we are so successful, is because we are trying to partner with our customers. And the number which shows this is that the 20% of our customers have more than one machine. So the they got started with the technology, and then step by step are working into this topic and expanding their knowledge, and then also expanding their machine fleet. Yeah, here you see some of our customers. We have a focus of about 2/3 of the customers being industrial customers. For example, from the US, Ceramco, or of course, Sandia National Labs, as we will see here, but also Alfred University and other US institutions and companies. Not all of them are named here, but I don't want to go into too much detail here. Just very briefly, the technology, because Dave will go into some details of what he has already done with us. So I want to very briefly explain you the technology. So first of all, our process chain is very simple. We start with the CAD design, then we print it, and then, as it is normal in ceramic processing, we are debinding and sintering, and then we end up with the final product. But how do we do this 3D printing? Actually, we are using a lithography-based approach. So LCM stands for lithography-based ceramic manufacturing, which means we are using light as a structuring method. So we have a DLP projector projecting from underneath the image. Where the light hits the material solidifies, and so we are building up layer after layer and come to the final green part. And then we have to debind and sinter. The advantage of lithography-based manufacturing is that it's very precise and accurate, and you can really, since you are doing the debinding and sintering afterwards and you're reaching high densities, you can reach very, very good material properties, as we will see right after. I mean, if you're interested in having a closer look into this technology, there are a couple of videos online on either on our website or on YouTube. Please feel free to get into that. And if you have any questions, we can also address them later on or after the webinar. Here you see just a range of our materials. We have here more the research machines, the Serafab 7500, 8500. And then the industrial systems, which are intended for mass production. So you can already put different machines together in order to multiply your output. Our approach is, and this is what we have also learned from metal additive manufacturing, is to have smaller machines and multiply them rather than to have one big one. Here you have just some details about the specifications, but again, here I don't want to go into detail. You can find this information also on our website. Something which I'm very proud of what we did in the last few months was working on our multi-material system. The soft market launch has already started. What we're doing here, we are taking the same approach, but using two different wets. So we can use two materials, either, as you see in the lower part of the pictures, different colors, in different layers, or also, as you can see in the right-hand picture, the lower end, also within within the same layer. But what we can also do is to have to combine different materials, as you can see here. So within the same layer, we have combined zirconia and alumina, and we have sintered this to full density. So this is something what we are working on, and what we think will be also a big advantage for the ceramic industry. Yeah. Also, maybe just a little bit about the ceramic materials, about our portfolio, what we can offer. Basically, you can imagine that you can use all ceramic materials within this process or within our range of processes. Here, just a few which we have already launched, which we have already worked on. So it comes from, of course, alumina, zirconia, to other ceramics like silicon nitride or refractory materials, piezo ceramics, also regolite, which is moon dust basically, but also bone replacement material like tricalcium phosphate, hydroxyapatite, bioglass. So all different kinds of material and all different ranges of materials. And if you see here, for those, I guess most of the attendees are ceramic engineers who have a ceramic knowledge. You can tell from these numbers that they are, compared to conventional forming, quite good in terms of bending strength. Density is, of course, very high, well above 99%, and the surface roughness is always very good as well, well below 1 micron. And as you see, all the parts which we are exhibiting, which you see in this presentation, they are not polished or grinded. This is the as printed quality. Now I've lost the presentation. Thank you, back again. Here to just show you, to really compare two different manufacturing approaches with one of the most difficult materials, silicon nitride. On the left-hand side, we have the LCM technology. Right-hand side, we have the isopressed. And basically what you see is that there is no difference. In either in density, in hardness, or in biaxial strength, it's the same. And even in microstructure, you cannot tell that the left one has been 3D printed or not. So I think this is really a very important approach, that we are achieving same material properties as in conventional forming technology. Additionally, just to show off a little bit what's really possible as well with additive manufacturing, and that you see on the level where the technology already is that we can really make transparent alumina. So we have alumina samples, which we of course hipping, and we can get it really translucent so that you can read through it through a 1 millimeter thick sample. And you see also from the grain structure, grain size, that this is very good controlled. And you know, once you have something transparent or translucent, you cannot hide anything. So this is really where I think this is where you see what's going good and what's not going good. So this was it from the, let's say, just very briefly about the technology. As I said, you find much more information on the internet, but let me now step into this topic of additive manufacturing, a little bit a different approach. Here I've chosen also the title, An Easy Process for Ceramicists. You will see why this is right. Just very briefly, here's a SmartTech analysis about the market. You can see we are in the very low numbers now, but it is growing fast, and this is what we have also seen here at Litos. We see a very, very strong growth in the market. We see, and this is for me the key, we see also a trend towards making really products, not only prototyping, but producing with additive manufacturing. So most of the customers which have more than one machine, they are already producing, and by producing I mean 5 to 10 or even more 1,000 parts per year of the same kind. With even applications where they're already working on mass customization, where we talk about much higher numbers at the end. And the market is actually driven by technical applications, and this is my perception. This is why I think partnering is so important, that high-end applications need a collaboration along the whole innovation chain. Because as you will see in a minute, this additive manufacturing process it's sometimes in the media it said it's to be very, very easy. You just take a file and you print it and you are done. But basically, when it comes to production, it is a complex process. You have on the one hand the material, you have the process itself, you have the machine, the equipment, and you have the design. And all these four have to work together. And as you can see in the right-hand picture, you know, there are different things which you have to take into consideration. And there you understand now why it's important that everybody is working together from the very beginning, from the design on up to the equipment manufacturing, materials, and the processes. This is the key to be really fast in the innovation and to be really fast in developing a new product or getting a product into production. And this interaction, this is already well known for ceramicists, and they know that there is always a connection between material, process, equipment, and design. And therefore, this is one of the reasons why I think it's easy for ceramicists to get into additive manufacturing, other than, let's say, metallurgists or people working with metals, they are not working with powders in most of the cases. But here, this connection or the interaction is much stronger than in conventional forming technologies. But of course, one of the key, or one of the sentences, why should we get started now? I mean, it's a young technology and it's not yet mature, and why should I already start? I mean, I don't have any applications. But I think, and this is what we already see, that waiting is really a risky strategy, because we have, in the year 2020, so up to date, we already have these pioneers working in additive manufacturing of ceramics, and they are now, we have to say, 8 years already ahead, up to 8 years ahead. And these early adopters, this is what we see, they are creating a significant business advantage for themselves, and they are maturing the technology also in their environment. So this is important. I mean, you cannot just say, okay, now I have a 3D printer and now I'm expert in additive manufacturing. You have to get the system here, start working with it, implement it into the whole company, the whole research organization, and learning by working with it. And what we see, and this is really something where most companies and people don't think that this is happening, but we already have proved that these things are happening, that customers implementing additive manufacturing technologies or even working on additive manufacturing by intentionally surpassing their current suppliers. So they are looking for purpose for somebody who already has experience in additive manufacturing. And this is somehow a risk for people that they then lose the connection to their customers. And what we see as well, and I'm being as a ceramic researcher in the past, I would not have imagined this happens, but we see this really, that these things happen, that new players from completely outside of the ceramic field are entering the market and they are disrupting the market. So there's players who have never had anything to do with ceramics are now entering the ceramic market and building up competence in additive manufacturing. Yeah, I think, the market and the technology are ready. There is still work to do, mainly for yourself to get started with this technology and learn with it. And the effective implementation of the technology of an innovative manufacturer requires the full commitment. So I think, because I buy a printer and I leave it for a while, it's really, as Dale did or as Sandia did, really working roughly with this technology, trying to find where are the limits, what can I do with it. This is important. And then you can also steepen your learning curve by training, by real work on concrete challenge. I think this is very important. This is what Dale and his team has already experienced, that this is important to work with. As with any other technology, as with anything you need to learn, you need to do training and work on it. And you need to also have a room to play around a little bit with those issues. And then the materials are already available. As you see, many more are in development or experimental status, or you can, they will come up if they are needed. And as I said already, end users are looking really very openly for technology partners to innovate their products and to move forward. That was one too much. And I think, how to start with them? Why can you do so? I try to also implement some things from outside, or maybe one from Deloitte study, where they're saying to realize the full potential of additive manufacturing, organization must learn and implement the new technology and focus on developing a capable, skilled workforce. And this is what you can do in a partnership, to work together and build up a skilled workforce, because this is the key to innovation and to success. And here also is from KTM, an Austrian motorcycle manufacturing company. They did a great approach. They installed the first system, made it accessible for everybody at no costs, and then they come up with a lot of new ideas what can be done by additive manufacturing. So you need also this, you need to engage the people, but you need to leave also some room for improvement. And summarizing this a little bit, why is it easy for ceramicists to get started with additive manufacturing? First of all, the entry costs are much lower. So we see metal systems now being in the range of $1 million. Some lower, but you need a lot of more equipment. But usually all ceramicists have already their furnaces and everything needed. The AM benefits basically are more pronounced in ceramics because machining is much more tougher than in metal. So I think once we in the ceramic community start to work on additive manufacturing, we will see that things are moving from traditional machining to additive manufacturing. We see this already in injection molding, where some companies having lower numbers in parts which they need per year. They are really switching completely from injection molding to additive manufacturing. And what we already have, also an advantage, is that additive manufacturing in general is already mature. The redesign, the software support, all these initial hurdles, they have already been mastered in metal or in plastic AM, and all these things are already existing. So all these things which are general to all materials, they are already in place, and the end users are already prepared for additive manufacturing. Sometimes they're just waiting for ceramics to also have these advantages of additive manufacturing for ceramics as well. And I think one of the key things, and I already mentioned it before, that ceramicists are used to work with powders and are used to redesign things. So this is what all ceramicists usually do, and this is what metal people usually don't have too much. But here we have a good advantage, I think. Yeah, why is the partnership a key to success? Here, one of our customers, which we have been working for a long time, from Cerix, it's a Bosch company. They've been already working a lot with us, doing different projects, and they can count on us as a technology owner, and they are working further to develop their expertise. They are relying on the in-depth background. They have a strong, in the beginning, I think it's very important to have a strong exchange of ideas and a strong communication, and to exchange ideas, and also to practically demonstrate things and really get a direct benefit in the project. And I think that's really important along the whole process chain. So not last, but just the last slide to sum up some of my thoughts. I think innovation is really important and is needed along the whole process chain. We can provide this. We leave the customer the choice of where he wants to involve us. But what we see is the more we are involved in projects, the faster the customers are, and the better the output. So this is really our idea to think that we are thinking in partnerships, and we are offering very, very openly our know-how and our experience to support your innovation. And now, last but not least, I want also to invite you to the AM Ceramics. This is a conference which we have kicked off a couple of years ago. This year it's virtual and it's free to attend this year. So you're very much invited to visit us on this conference, on this virtual conference, September 16th and 17th. So one is an additive manufacturing day, and the other one is the ceramic day conference included, where there's more general topics, but you're happy to participate, as I said, free to attend. And yeah, I hope we have a vivid discussion afterwards. Here you have also the contact details. If you need anything, feel free to directly contact us as well. And I'm already looking forward to Dale's presentation and then afterwards to the Q&A. So thank you very much. In the meantime, looking forward to speaking to you later.
Thank you, Johannes. I'd like to remind our listeners that our panelists will take questions at the end, and please submit your questions using the Q&A tab on the screen. Our next presenter is Mr. Dale Cillessen. Dale is a senior member of the technical staff in the Advanced Science Technology Maturation Department at Sandia National Labs in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He is the engineering operational lead of Sandia's metal and ceramic printing facility, where his research focuses on developing accurate, repeatable, structurally sound, additive manufactured components. Also joining us as a panelist, not a presenter, but she'll be available to answer questions, is Judy Levin, also from Sandia, and she is a principal member of the technical staff in the MEMS technology group at Sandia. She has worked in the area of additive and advanced manufacturing for the last 7 years, and she leads a team working on printed interconnects, components, and ceramics. Welcome to you both. And now, Dale, let's hear Sandia's side of the story.
Well, thank you for a wonderful introduction. It's an honor to be speaking today, as well as speaking with and teaming with Johannes on this great technology. I titled this presentation, A User's Perspective. We recently invested in the lithos technology, and bringing it in full speed, wanted to give you some of our perspective and things that we've done. As mentioned, Judy Levin's on the panel, and more about Judy here in a bit. So, Sandia National Laboratories. Trying to advance it here. Sandia National Laboratories is a federally funded research and development center with a focus on nuclear weapons, defense systems and assessments, energy and climate, international, homeland, and nuclear security. We have a broad range of products, and noticeably on the bottom right is a ceramic component. We've been in ceramic development and ceramic components, using ceramic components within our systems since 1960s. The agenda for my presentation today is a brief history on additive manufacturing at Sandia National Labs, evaluating and exploring additive manufacturing of ceramics, identifying and partnering with lithos, validating the lithos technology, acquiring a lithos printer, and some operational studies that we've performed, and then our future plans using this technology. We have a long history in additive manufacturing dated back to 1990s. Probably one of the more known is the lens technology, which is laser engineered net shape, also known as direct energy deposition, using metal powders to flow into a laser path to create a solid metal component. In the ceramics world, the RoboCast process was licensed and developed here at Sandia National Labs, and is a company available here in Albuquerque. More recently, in the additive manufacturing space, is the IDS incorporated technology. This is using an aerosol jet, printing nanoparticles onto different substrates. We also have experience in compression pads, laser powder bed fusion, as well as the lithos technology, digitalized ceramic processing. Prior developments in ceramic at Sandia National Labs, in addition to the RoboCast process, shown here below is an extrusion type process. This process was very successful in creating the structures and the geometry that were required. However, during the application space and the design engineer's needs, it didn't meet the current requirements. We also did some experimentation using laser powder bed processing, traditional metal manufacturing additive machines, to try some different challenges with ceramic processing. Due to the rapid heating and cooling of the laser, or by using a laser, we experienced nothing but fractured surfaces. In 2017, Judy Levin and team identified lithos and established initial contact with them. Judy remains a key asset to development of ceramics here at Sandia. And through her efforts, we've developed, teaming with lithos, we've developed custom ceramic slurries utilizing Sandia's custom Sandia ceramic material. The ceramic material that we'll talk about that's been developed has been available since early 2000s and is currently available in powder form. teaming with Lithos America, we have introduced our powder ceramic into the Lithos slurry technology. Lithos was identified because of their capability to produce fully dense, high tolerance, high quality surface finished components. But the biggest part of this was to develop a relationship that was responsive and in our custom material development. Shown below is the video of, or a walkthrough of a tinsel button. This was our initial testing that we had Lithos perform for us. This testing was to evaluate the density and make sure there's no voids or pivots or cracks, divots, any inclusions within this ceramic tinsel button. This is a standard ASTM tinsel button. The dimensions of this tinsel button are approximately 1/4 of an inch at the base thickness, an inch and an eighth in diameter, and approximately a 1/2 inch internal diameter hole. Noted in the video, I chose this specific video as it does show that everything is not perfect. Although we do see fully dense components, very nice clean sharp edges along the outside of this component. We did observe one small crack within this. However, we knew that this was something that could be overcome. As it approaches the back wall of this hole, you will notice a crack that appears 1/4 of the way up into the video. After success with the tinsel buttons, we looked at other geometries that were critical for our components here at Sandia. In 2019, we engaged Sandia to develop our ceramic material within their slurry and print some components that meet our requirements as far as shape. The printed components were printed using our slurry or our ceramic and brought back to Sandia for evaluation. The evaluations determined that not only did they meet the vacuum hermetic seal requirement, but they also were capable of meeting a dissimilar braze. The following the initial study, was a large wall thickness study. The wall thickness of these components was approximately 8 millimeters in centered size, rather large cross sections for this printing capability. But we did observe some potential cracking across the cross section, and it posed significant challenges in dealing with these large diameter components. Having about a 50% success rate and having a better understanding of what variables we needed to control, we identified the solids loading, humidity, and powder processing can contribute to the cracking and will be evaluated farther if these components are desired for future applications. On the other end of the spectrum, we did a small component study. So very small ID features was the focus of this study. So we were looking for clearance holes ranging from 30,000ths of an inch all the way through 1/8 of an inch in diameter. As you can see in the table on the bottom right, that we did determine the geometry is printable. However, we'll need further characterization to get the exact desired tolerance, and we'll talk about this later. You can see that we are achieving diameters of all the way down to 20,000ths of an inch, up to approximately an eighth of an inch, and a slight misalignment as far as tolerance, but this can be adjusted. And we did learn a lot during this process about establishing guidelines for future printing of this component. And this also was done using our ceramic material, or our base ceramic material. Based on these evaluations, we determined it was appropriate to bring a Lithos Cerafab printer here to Sandia. First engagement with Johannes was in June of 2019, and in September we accepted our Cerafab 8500 that was custom made for Sandia National Labs. The custom part of this printer is observable here on the right with the bottom PC unit, or the separate data management system that's unique for us and meets our cyber requirements. Since operational, the machine was placed in operation in February of 2020. Sean Allen, Vice President Lithos America, was on site here in February, and the machine's seen constant use even through the pandemic we're currently in since it's been in operation. The initial study that I performed was to do a tolerance check around the perimeter of the build plate using a standard Lithos material. Noted on the bottom right is a broken component that was done during post-operation and not part of the printing process. The most noticeable difference was a 50 micron deviation from regardless of placement on the build plate, and the parts were determined to be very accurate. Only shown as one measurement. These components, however, were measured and quantified in many other directions. The next study that was done was using the lithos printer, as mentioned earlier, with a 20 thousandths diameter hole, is a desired feature here, Sandia. For these components, this component is approximately 1/4 of an inch in diameter and 1/4 of an inch in height, with a clearance hole of 20 thousandths of an inch through perpendicular to the build plate. As seen, the initial component had overpolymerization within the internal hole based on with 0 adjustments to the STL or CAD file. So to accommodate this can be done by doing 2 different things. One, you can change the settings within the machine to adjust the pixels to where it accounts for the overpolymerization. The overpolymerization, if adjusted on the pixel settings, can affect the outside diameter. The outside diameter was within tolerance for the desired component. So to not adjust the outside diameter, we adjusted the CAD to meet our requirements, creating our own internal guidelines on printing very fine, delicate through holes through this component. By a 5 thousandths of an inch adjustment in size, we achieved our first clearance hole of 13 thousandths of an inch through the component, visible all the way from top to bottom. It wasn't until we reached a 15 thousandths oversize based on the CAD file did we achieve our desired 20 thousandths of an inch in diameter. This was measured at both the top and the bottom, and it was very consistent across the measurement. During the same printing, we also verified that the layer thickness was within specification from the printer. As you can see here, we have a 25 micron or 1/1000th of an inch program setting, and we achieved 28 microns, and the 3 microns would be negligible based on the measurement criteria. Following, most recently, this was within the last few weeks, we've printed this high tolerance vacuum fixture. This high tolerance vacuum fixture has some very detailed geometry of a 15 thousandths wall thickness, or 381 microns. And the resultant wall thickness we achieved was slightly larger. That's observable by the slight overpolymerization on these ends. We're down very, very small scale. But the critical feature for this is being evaluated by the design engineer, and it's actually on the internal of this component shown on the bottom right. You can see that little step within this, and the evaluation is being conducted to determine that it meets their fixturing needs. The rest of the geometry associated with this component was within the specification required by the design engineer. Thinking outside the box, design engineers now have the opportunity, or experimentalists now have the opportunity to experiment with new ceramic designs and potentially simplifying assemblies. This little testing apparatus was designed and developed and delivered to the customer within a couple weeks, and it replaced metal clamps, a ceramic insulating tube, a thermocouple insulating tube, and fasteners with one single part. The innovative design of this component was to allow assembly onto an existing subassembly to do a thermal measurement over the existing part. Holes within the printed ceramic were complete. This was different from the assembly that would require very delicate components. This was a very nice component, was delivered to the customer, and very successful in testing. Kind of the last slide summary of what's happening here and what's the future looks like for Sandia National Labs is this year, in 2020, we submitted 5 different laboratory-directed research and developments that focused on utilizing lithos ceramic technology and to develop and implement ceramic technology within our products. One of the 5 proposed topics was awarded and will start in 2021. Teaming with lithos, we will continue the development of our custom ceramic slurries, and we're looking into 3 to 4 developments over the next year. We're also internally developing our own mechanical characterization processes to ensure that we develop and have the right ceramic for the right application. Along with the laser powder bed printers within my facility, the lithos printer will be available as a resource to others within the laboratory, and it will push the limits and open up new design space for research and development engineers here at Sandia. My contact information is here on the slide. If you guys have any questions, please feel free. And I'm looking forward to the question and answer section. And thank you once again.
Great. Thank you very much, Dale, for a very interesting presentation about how you implemented the LCM technology from Lithos into your laboratory. So we do have a couple of questions that have come in, and I just want to remind everyone that if you have some questions for either Johannes at Lithos or Dale and Judy at Sandia about, you know, how they implemented the LCM technology in their labs, feel free to use the Q&A session or box on your screen to do that. So let's see. The first question I think is probably for Johannes. And the question is with regard to when you printed the dissimilar materials. You showed an example of a zirconia with a alumina. So the question is, after you printed the part, did you have to adjust the sintering profile somehow to do the finishing of the part?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, first of all, to have a general answer to this question, first of all, with additive manufacturing, we cannot solve material issues which are existing. So, you know, you have to match, of course, the powders and the sintering temperature to adjust, to get the same sintering temperature for the two components. And this has to be adjusted, this has to be done. And this is a normal ceramic issue, which has to be also done for additive manufacturing. But I think what's the key is here that we can really selectively put ceramic particles or ceramic materials where it is really needed. And I think this is really a huge research topic, and it will open up completely new possibilities.
Okay. Another question kind of picks up on that a little bit. And it says, which techniques of additive, and a few are listed, stereolithography, selective laser, binder jet, fuse deposition, and direct ink writing, are best for processing a dense composite of ceramic and polymer? And as I'm sure you're aware, there's some really interesting work going on in terms of developing new functional components with ceramic and polymer using cold sintering as one approach. But what would additive manufacturing offer for combining really dissimilar materials together?
Should I answer, or Dale, you want to answer?
Sorry. Yeah, I think Johannes, for you.
Yeah. Basically, if I don't know if this question refers to ceramic and polymers for this cold sintering approach. But basically, I think if you really want to make dense ceramic parts, stereolithography is one of the best technology or best suited to make it. I think selective laser sintering is a rather difficult approach because you get a lot of tension into the systems, and you are not actually sintering but melting. Binder jetting it's perfectly suited, for example, for RBSIC. But you're always ending up with a non-dense, with a porous body. Fuse deposition modeling is very easy to use, but as it has, this extrusion technology, as it was shown by Dale in the very beginning, they have a limitation in terms of resolution, and maybe also in terms of material properties. Direct inkjet writing is a very interesting approach, but I think the problem here is really to get this into a production state. I think this is more a research application, not yet so much suited for ceramic processing, because basically you are jetting an abrasive material through a nozzle, and this is always not a good idea. So I think, there is actually no superior technology, but you have to see what you need. And if you want to have a dense ceramic body, or if you want to have a dense and precise part, stereolithography is a good choice, but also others are a viable option if you want to achieve different things.
Okay, thank you. And Dale and Judy, you've proven out your system and done all your testing using alumina so far. Do you have any thoughts of experimenting with other materials? And can you talk a little bit about, what materials that you're looking at using?
Yes, ma'am. We plan on engaging next year. Our initial focus was on the alumina-based material. It's one of the more prevalent within our design space, but there's also some other components that we're bringing in next year, and it will be a challenge for us during the 2021 year to look at cermet materials, potentially a PZT-like material. These are the initial two, the next two that will be evaluated.
Okay. About how big are these pieces that you're making or intending to make? I know you gave us dimensions on the buttons you tested already, but for do you have scale-up plans in terms of size?
No, we typically deal in a lot of small components, very small in size. As it's pretty common across the presentation of what our size would represent, anywhere from 1 1/8 inch in diameter all the way down to the 20,000 7-inch wall thickness or 20,000 7-inch through hole. These are pretty consistent with most of the geometries that I've printed here, and I think is pretty common for what I'll experience in the future.
Okay. Another question is, probably either of you can answer this, is it possible to process a directionally porous ceramic using additive manufacturing?
Mm-hmm. Basically, I would say it's possible. The question is, how porous do you want to have it in directional? I think this is important to understand what is the pore size you're aiming at. You can definitely do directional things and work on this, but the question is always like, what is the limit? So just encouraged to get into a deeper discussion personally to have a better understanding of the question. But basically, it's possible, yes.
Okay, very good. And another question, what characterization tests are performed during the development of ceramic suspensions for your stereolithography?
Maybe Dale, you can answer this question. You did it for our suspensions or for your developed materials.
So internally, we haven't done much of suspension characterization. We've relied on Lithos America for this suspension characterization, but in development and bringing in slurries here, we're ensuring that that the ceramic is well dispersed by either speed mixing technology or freezing technology to ensure that the ceramic is equal throughout the cylinder or the supply.
Okay.
Maybe just to add a few things here. So basically, we are trying our approaches to adapt the technology to the powder and not vice versa. So, there are different slurries which we are working. Characterization of the slurry is not so important. Of course, on the long term it's important, but our CTO, he always says our machine is like a pig, it eats everything. So you can really add a lot of ceramic slurries in there, and you can work quite well with it. And afterwards, when you're finished, I think the most important thing is achievable density and bending strength.
Okay. And so then your comment would sort of seem to imply that you could use the LCM technology for printing really any kind of ceramic, whether it's an oxide or nitride or carbide. So would you recommend using it, for example, for silicon carbide?
Silicon carbide is always the big, that's the holy grail to get SSC, so the sintered silicon carbide. We have been, so from binder jetting, it is well known that RBSSC is working quite well for bigger components. We have successfully done recrystallized silicon carbide. We have done silicon infiltrated silicon carbide. This works quite well, but if you go to the smaller grain sizes, then to the SSC, this is really difficult. I don't think that with a stereolithography approach that it can be done, but we have already worked on, or we are already working in our lab on a new technology which will be capable of printing SSSE, and where we can make then dense silicon carbide components, and it will be also intended rather for bigger parts rather than smaller ones.
Okay. And then a question about partnerships, and one, especially with partnering with research institutes, which is very similar to what you did with Sandia. Can you talk a little bit about the best way to initiate that conversation? Dale mentioned that they started talking to you in June, and then the machine was brought over in September. Is that a typical timeline? What kinds of... Okay.
This is definitely not a typical timeline. Sandia was putting a lot of pressure on us to enable this. Now I think the discussion has been already done with Litos America, but they started then to discuss about the machine tool in June, and then we were really trying to support them as good as possible and get that going. I think it was tough for both of us, but we made it. But usually, I mean, as Dale was explaining, when Judy approached Sean, starting, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And can you support us here? What is there? So basically, we are pretty open in terms of collaboration. I think this is what I tried to show in my presentation, that we are open for this. And the best way to get in contact is to write an email or give us a phone call, and just discuss what you want to do. And I mean, we have research collaborations, of course, in the US, in Europe, in Australia, and China. Everywhere in the world, so we are pretty open for these kinds of things, and I think the best way is just get in contact with us and tell us how we can support and help you.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about what kinds of questions you're going to ask? Say somebody from calls you up and says, we want to kind of do what Sandia did. What are the questions that you're going to ask first, Johannes?
Yeah, if I would be very blunt, I would first of all ask, do you really need additive manufacturing, and do you really need ceramics? I mean, this is what I usually start off, to very fast get to the point. Is it really something where people are thinking about really using additive manufacturing, or is it just we want to see if it's cheaper than our already existing technology? And do they really need ceramics, or do they think it can be cheaper than plastic? And then usually we come, this was really a little bit too blunt, but basically what I'm trying to see, is there really the need for additive manufacturing? Is there really the need for ceramics? This is basically one of the issues we're trying to understand. And then is the next big thing is then to understand the needs of the customer and looking behind their problems. So sometimes people come up and say, hey, here, this is my problem, and I already have, and I know you have the solution for it. But sometimes it's good to say, okay, what's the problem behind the problem? Can you explain me? Can we help you there? So sometimes we need to dig a little bit deeper to understand the problem of the customer, and then we can offer usually a very good support. So it's basically at the end, it's just trying to understand the needs of the customer.
Okay. Dale, let me flip that question to you. How did you guys initiate this relationship, and what would you say are the really one or two top things that really made the relationship work?
I think it might be nice to hear from Judy. I know she was one of the ones that was on the very initial calls with Lithos here in America, as well as kind of the spearhead, if you will, on some of these. Judy, are you available?
Let's see if we can unmute Judy. Okay.
Hi, Dale. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so as you were saying, that we began our partnership in 2017, and it began with was really just looking into what the available technologies were for ceramics. Lithos jumped out front and center, and through the initial contact with Sean Allen in the Lithos America-based company in Troy, he was just really willing to accommodate our needs, explore you know, new areas in terms of size and shape of parts that we were printing. There was a really open communication on what they felt were their limitations, and then working through that in terms of say the post-processing part. They were also really willing in working with our materials and taking those new materials on board. And there was a great rapport between Sandia and Lithos USA in sharing our results. So we were able to do some characterizations here in Albuquerque that Lithos was not able to perform. We were able to share that information with them, and then in return, they were able to apply that into the development of say, the material or the best way to build the part. So it was really a great collaboration. There was great cooperation between both, and it worked. It worked very well.
Great. So we're coming to the end of our time together, but I have just maybe one last question for Johannes really to chime in on. And that was, you showed an intriguing slide of the market potential reaching up into, you know, the multi-billions within about 10 years, which means that we're just starting to, you know, rise up that curve right now. And so what are the application areas that are going to drive that $4 billion in ceramics additive manufacturing?
I think, I mean, that's a great question, but also a very delicate question, because it also contains a lot of confidential information, but I try to be as general as possible and as special, as much in depth as I can. I think, you know, one of the key areas we see is for example, medical. So personalized implants, as you can imagine, are very, very interesting. So we're already in human use since 2017 with this technology. Then we see, and also other implants, but also what we see, surgical tools or instruments for the medical industry, because they rather have these low numbers, these 5 to 10,000, 15,000 parts per year, and they are rather small. And this is something which is also very important, that the smaller the parts are, usually the better suited they are for additive manufacturing. And another very interesting area, which I was not aware of in the very beginning when we kicked off Lithos, was ceramic casting cores. This is something where we see a very, very huge potential that additive manufacturing will become a production technology there, because the new generation of cores are already designed in a way that they cannot produce by injection molding only anymore. And this can be really a great area. And then I mean, Dale was showing a lot of his thing what he was showing from this the parts, this fastener and the things. But there are actually a lot of technical applications where we have not yet the full overview, but there are a lot of parts which are better suited for additive manufacturing than for traditional forming technologies, and additionally, which will come much more into place once you start with DFAM, so design for additive manufacturing, to get really the most out of the parts, of the design and the parts. And finally, there will be much more parts coming up, and they will also go into the hundreds and millions of thousand parts to be produced. And so I think, you know, there are some areas, or for example, which I cannot go into too much detail here, but there are a lot of interesting areas, and we will see them in the near future. Hopefully, when companies are more open to show what they are doing with this technology.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I'm really looking forward to seeing those areas build out and develop. And I want to thank you both for talking to us today about additive manufacturing, but more importantly, the elements that it takes to successfully work with a supplier and a customer to get a good end result. These are not small investments, and they, in order to be successful, they require great cooperation. So thank you for sharing that case study with us. I want to remind the audience that an archive of this webinar will be available in about a week, and you can find it at ceramics.org/webinar. And once again, thank you very much, everybody, for attending. Thank you to our panelists, Johannes, Dale, and Judy, and we are adjourned. Thank you.